bite of differentiated instruction. We're excited to get started with you today. My name is Katie Gallagher, and I'm the Director of Product Marketing for Teaching and Learning at Blackboard K-12. Thanks to Ryan McLaughlin from our field marketing team, who's going to be helping us to the session, helping answer questions in the chat and help with attendance. So we're joining you for the Blackboard K-12 Innovative Teaching Series today. In the spring, we're always open to new ideas for topics for the series. So please let us know if you have an interest in presenting a future session. You can just shoot us an email or tweet. Each session in the series is recorded. We share those sessions within our community site, on the Blackboard community site. We also publish them on a playlist on the Blackboard YouTube channel. You can find all the sessions at tinyurl.com/bits-K-12. We'll post that in the chat for you. And you can also find other sessions in the community site. So we invite you to sign up for that community site, and you can do so at this URL. I'm going to post it into the chat for you. But the new community site is designed to connect you to a variety of colleagues across the nation, and with engaging resources such as the recordings of each of these sessions, the PDF of the slides, and so forth. So it's designed to augment the series and create an avenue for ongoing collaboration and dialogue in the group that participates. So please be sure to go to the site and sign up so you don't miss any information. We're excited to announce that the registration period for Blackboard World 2016 is now open. We hope that you will consider joining us July 12th to the 14th in Vegas. We're excited also to announce that we're going to be offering, we believe we're going to be offering a blended learning pre-conference session early in the day on the 12th, just for K-12. And no added costs. So we're looking forward to seeing you there. Please get signed up. Today we have Jessica Gardner from Sarasota County Public Schools covering a bite of differentiated instruction. Next Monday, we have Stacy Brasfield from Arlington Public Schools. She's a chemistry teacher there, and she's going to be sharing from traffic cop to traffic engineer, how to give students greater autonomy and make your classroom more efficient. We also have other great sessions lined up in March with the team from Cecil County Public Schools, Maryland, and then coming back on April 11th with the Episcopal School of Baton Rouge. So please join us for the rest of the sessions in the series. We go through the end of May. So with that, I'm very excited to welcome Jessica Gardner from Sarasota County Public Schools. She's a fourth grade teacher at Southside Elementary School in Sarasota, Florida. She's currently piloting a digital class where each of her students use a Microsoft Surface 3 tablet throughout the school day to access Blackboard Learn and Office 365 to supplement their daily instruction. She's been teaching for 9 years, and during that time, she's taught 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades at both Title I and non-Title I schools. She has her ESL, gifted, and ESE endorsements. And we've had Jessica present before. You're in for a treat today. Welcome, Jessica, and thank you all for joining us. We'll be watching for questions in the chat, but don't hesitate to turn your mic on or raise your hand to ask a question verbally, and we'll also open up for questions at the end of the session. But when talking, if you would make sure your microphone is muted so we can preserve a higher quality recording. So thank you, everyone, and I'll hand it to you, Jessica.
Okay, thank you so much. So the title of my session today is called A Bite of Differentiated Instruction. The BITE acronym is actually the acronym of my class as well, so I kind of use it and infuse it in everything that we do. The BITE class stands for Broadening Your Technology Experience, and our mission statement is, in our classrooms, students will use engaging digital tools in collaborative, inquiry-based learning environments, using technology's power to assist them in transforming knowledge and skills into products, communications, reflection solutions, and new information. So I decided to come up with the BITE class because our middle schools have technology infused into their classrooms, and so do our high schools with their own special names. So I kind of felt like in the elementary schools we needed our own special name as well. So that's where the BITE class kind of evolved from. So the approach that I started piloting last year was the blended learning model. Like Katie mentioned, each one of my students has a Microsoft Surface Pro tablet, Surface 3 tablet, excuse me. This year, what's new is they have digital inking capacities. So that's been a lot of fun this year, teaching students to go a lot more paperless and instead use OneNote for our digital inking needs. So in the BITE class, the what is, it's a one-to-one digital class using Microsoft Surface 3 tablets. And the why behind it was to increase students' awareness and understanding of digital tools that are available to them in Sarasota County schools, digital citizenship, and also this year, digital inking and note-taking. And the how behind it is the blended learning model using Blackboard Learn, Office 365 tools, specifically OneNote. So when I began to think about differentiated instruction in the classroom, I kind of brought it back to its basic definition. What does it mean to differentiate instruction? Because it seems to be, you know, what we are all required to do and throughout our day, especially in the elementary school. We hear DI left and right. And differentiated instruction, DI, in its most basic defined means, is a flexible and individual approach to teaching. So with a ratio of 23-to-1 ratio of students to teacher, it makes it a little bit of a challenge to meet the individual needs of each and every student, considering I have everything from the gifted down to ESL to ESE kids all in one set classroom. This is the home page of my Blackboard course, and as for an elementary setup, that is. I created kind of a kid-friendly banner. The home page has announcements. We have pictures of anything that happened during the week, student of the week, field trips of the week. And you can see on the left-hand side is our different tabs that the kids use to access from school and home. And it's kind of designed in a way to resemble a teacher web page, which I actually ended up, I no longer have, because pretty much everything I was using my teacher web page for, I could use my Blackboard for. So it has a calendar in there, it has contact your teachers, it has a tab for each content area that I teach, and I also team teach with a teacher as well. And in addition, it has my groups listed down below, which I'll get into that in just a second. So when I started looking at how I can differentiate instruction using Blackboard, it's when I really started playing around with creating groups. And at first I was a little intimidating by creating groups within Blackboard, and then I realized just how easy it actually was. It allowed me to group my students by ability, by interest, or simply just random selection. I also discovered that monitoring the groups was really easy as well when I was monitoring the rest of my class assignments. It's really easy for the teacher to set up, and it's just as easy for the students to participate in. But what I really like, going back to that differentiated instruction, is that groups, it allows groups collaboration, problem solving, and choice. And those are kind of the three aspects of the school day that I really try to encourage with my students. So you can see on the right-hand side that accessing the users and the groups in order is listed right under the course management, where I was going anyways for evaluation and grade center and for customization. So I was already there. I just never had quite explored setting up groups before. And then on my student screen, they see on the left-hand side all the content areas, and then down at the bottom, they see a title, My Groups, and then underneath that, they see each and every one of the groups that they are currently enrolled in, whether it's a book club or a science group or any other group that I might have created for my students. So when you're thinking about the different ways to group your students, there's quite a few of different options, and here are some of the ones that I played around with this year that I'll be chatting with you about. So the first option is to group them academically. And an example of this is where I group my students by their reading level. And one activity that I did last year that worked really well is book clubs. So this worked great for an enrichment activity for my above level readers that needed that kind of extra push outside of my small group instruction that I was doing with my ESC students. The next grouping that you can make is by choice. So this is where kids choose their own group members, and they kind of told me, here's who's in our group. And one of the activities we've done before is the science fair projects. You choose your group members, you choose your science fair project, and you are enrolled in Blackboard based on that grouping. The third one that I've done before is where I have randomly selected students for a group, and that definitely has its pros and cons there, but it's just a totally different way of grouping kids for, like, say, an in-class activity, like when we were studying Native American tribes. The groups were randomly selected. They were randomly given one of the Native American tribes to do a project on. And the fourth one that I've really been interested in this year is actually creating individual groups. And in this case, I took all 23 of my students and grouped them individually so that it's only them in the group. And I, as their instructor, can see what's happening within the group, and I can add things into their group. And I specifically did this activity so that I could do one-to-one writing conferences, which always seemed to be the one thing I can never get to in a school day is besides teaching reading, math, social studies, and science, and how am I going to meet one-on-one with 23 kids and conference with them about their writing. So this was kind of an aha that I took away from last year's Blackboard World session, is creating one-to-one groups. So the first one that I'm going to kind of expand on a little bit more is the academic grouping. And these students are grouped by their reading level and put into book club groups. So you could see that I had several going on at once. We had the Frog Princess and Ella Enchanted, Al Capone Does My Shirts, and Hatchet. And you could see on the right-hand side that we had everything from 6 members enrolled down to only 3 members enrolled. They completed their assigned readings for the week, and they were required to respond to a group wiki that I had set up for them each week on their own. That was what they were required to do on their own, so it could have been done at school or at home. Kids chose both, but they were still required to also meet face-to-face and discuss what they wrote in that wiki. So these students are grouped individually so that they are the only member. So this was a little bit different. And you can see that we had student 1, student 2. So I name every student in my class has their number. And so it's just done alphabetically. And what I did in here is I set it up so their group task could be a file exchange and then a group journal between the student and I. And what one of the things that I did is if I noticed a deficit in an area that my student needed to work on, I could individually upload for that student. So in this example, one of my students was just continuously having a hard time remembering all the components that I wanted him to include in a friendly letter. So I uploaded a video on the parts of a friendly letter for him to review and for him to redo one of his friendly letter assignments, redo it in a Word document, and upload it to me via Blackboard. And in this case, it's only he and I that see the exchange going on within that group. Okay, so I'm going to step back to the book club wikis for a second. This gives you a little bit kind of a closer look on exactly how that is set up. I pre-set up the wikis for each group, and it was very much similar to what I would have done paper pencil when I included the job roles for each student and gave them a folder and paper and pencil. This is just done paperless. So we had the discussion director, the connector, the illustrator, mapper, literary luminary, and word wizard. And on the right, you can see that's where my directions were listed as part of the discussion director. And down at the bottom, you can see that each student had, throughout the weeks of participating in the book club, had edited that wiki page. So in this case, the discussion director had to come up with 3 to 4 really good questions to ask the group when they met face to face. And they were extremely thoughtful questions. I probably couldn't have come up with better questions myself if I were leading their group. And you can see that we had Grayson with his questions. And then the following week, we had Jackson with his 3 questions, and Trafton the third week with his 3 questions. And again, I just can't emphasize enough that the quality of the work that the kids actually put into it was just phenomenal. They were thought-provoking. It led right into accountable talk when they did meet. Word Wizard, also that job gives students an opportunity to accumulate tier 2 and tier 3 precise vocabulary. I don't know about you guys, but accountable talk and precise vocabulary are the 2 big buzzwords floating around my district right now. And everything we do is promoting either accountable talk or precise vocabulary. And I really like that I've been able to incorporate both via technology in addition to face-to-face activities. What was really neat about also putting kids in groups is where it kind of just led right into them doing their own group projects. And I kind of let them take the reins on this after finishing a book. I said, okay, I want you guys to think of a way to share your book, like create a project, a product to share with the class what you've learned about your book. And one group decided to use the blog tool in their group to kind of research and collect all the interesting facts that they had learned about Alcatraz to share with the class. On the day of their presentation, they ended up even designing these day pass tickets to a day at Alcatraz in a Word document, and they handed them out to each student. And they also included a website that quizzed the kids on their knowledge of Alcatraz, and whoever got the most facts right got a prize. And this all just came from them and their ideas that they accumulated in their blog session. And the group underneath did something a little bit different. They used the discussion forum tool that was in their group tools to collect all of their ideas when deciding on a final product to share with the class. So, they just kind of spent pretty much an entire week going back and forth, sharing their different ideas on, well, I think we should do this, and I think we should do this, and I think we should do this. And they never really could quite get to a decision. And because I was monitoring their discussion forum, I, was able to kind of meet with them and kind of step in and say, all right, guys, let's look at all your ideas and see how we can combine them all. But what I loved about both groups and the groups after that is that it really promoted student choice. And because it promoted student choice, the quality of the work was just phenomenal. It was fantastic. This group ended up deciding to make a movie poster for their book, and they had to decide on which actual movie stars they wanted to portray each of the main characters, and then even came up with a theme song for their movie trailer, for their movie poster, which I thought was just really neat. So in monitoring all of this work, I discovered how to create a smart view in Grade Center. And I had been using Grade Center anyways, checking out when I had assigned any sort of task to my whole class, and I would go through and see what needs to be graded. And I was already looking at all of their grades, but then I started poking around and learning a little bit more about Smart View. So in this case, when I filtered my Grade Center, I could look specifically at a smart view of just my literature circles. So on certain days of the week, if I just wanted to check out, how my kids were participating in the literature circles, I could go into filter and select the literature circle smart view that I had created. And then from there, what I really liked is that I can individually see, especially with the wikis, I could individually see how much participation one of my students actually had accumulated, and were they kind of pulling their weight in the group compared to the other students. And I was able to give them a grade. I was able to give them some feedback as well, right in the grade center. So, Blackboard over the course of just a couple of years has really kind of changed and evolved how I teach in the classroom. I found that it was much easier to manage multiple groups simultaneously than if I were trying to attempt it in the classroom. In the past, it's just management purposes. It's quite difficult to try to have all of these different groups happening at the same time between the hours of 8 and 3 when you think about all the other teaching that's going on at the same time. Something else that was a really important goal for me this year when we started doing the digital inking was reducing the amount of paper waste we were accumulating in the classroom. And between our Office 365 tools and between Blackboard, it is amazing the amount of paper that I was able to not use in the course of the year, to the point of I had to suddenly go down to the copy machine and make a copy of something, and I had no idea that it had been broken for like 2 weeks. So, that's something that I'm really proud of in the classroom is the amount of paper waste that we have reduced. I've also found that there is just such a huge increase in my students' collaboration and creativity amongst each other when I was willing to kind of just pull back and let go and let them take the reins, especially when they were in those literature circles. Like I said, when they were the ones coming up with the questions or finding the great vocabulary words or the great quotations, it was nice to see that I wasn't trying to be in charge all the time and say, here are the questions I want you to answer. Here are the words I want you to look up. I let them do that. And it didn't come easy to begin with. There definitely was quite a bit of modeling at the beginning of the year on what a good literature circle looks like. So, they didn't jump right in August and participate in those great wikis. That was more, winter to springtime by the time that actually got going. And it also, using all these different digital tools helps me teach my digital natives how to use technology to enhance their educational experience. People think all the time, oh, they're kids, they know how to use technology, they know how to use their iPhone and their iPad and, their Xbox and everything else. But what I can pretty much say is, yes, while they can use all of those tools for entertainment purposes, they are pretty clueless when it comes to using technological tools for an educational purpose. So that's been one of the biggest ahas between last year and this year, is teaching them how to work collaboratively together using one of these digital tools, how to think about their digital voice when they're participating in a blog or a wiki or a discussion forum, and how it might sound when you're choosing different word choice. So there's a lot more to it than just this beautiful collaboration and differentiation going on. There's so many more layers to what we're actually teaching our kids when we're choosing to infuse the technology aspect of it. There's definitely a lot of challenges. I'm not going to say any of this came easy. First of all, the technology is new for these elementary kids. So when my kids came to me this year and I had all these grandiose ideas about what I was going to do, I realized quickly that I was going to have to pull back for 2 reasons. One, a lot of the tools were brand new to them. And two, these are elementary kids. All the technology was new to their parents. So I was getting emails every day about, they can't access this from home, and what does this mean, and how do we do this? And I found out really quickly that I had to pull back on my expectations of my kids and understand where they were coming in at, and also how to help their parents. These elementary kids, the parents needed just as much help and training too. So I had to have parent meetings at the beginning of the year and show them and how to use Blackboard or how to access OneDrive. Yes, good. I'm not the only one that had to provide a training for parents. I think I'm still doing it because they're asking for refreshers now that we're going into March. But what I really love is that this year, more and more elementary teachers are using the technology, the one-to-one technology, the Microsoft Surface tablets. More and more teachers are getting trained on Blackboard and Office 365. And I just went and shadowed a second grade teacher that is using Blackboard discussion forums, is using OneNote with digital inking with her second graders. And I was just astounded at what these little guys were doing and kept thinking, if they're starting it in second grade, how much will they know by the time they get to me in fourth grade? How much more will they be able to know? Therefore, when I send my kids to fifth grade and then on to middle school, how much more comfortable will they be with technology that's been made available to them? So there is a lot of upfront work at the beginning of the year, especially if you have kids coming to you without any technology in the past. Yes, parents definitely want to feel included in what's going on. How frustrating it is when all of a sudden your kids aren't bringing home a spelling list anymore with spelling choice assignments in a reading log, things that they are so comfortable with, and all of a sudden their kids are coming home and saying, oh, I need to participate in a discussion forum, and I need to log into Office 365 and create a Word document and share it with my teacher. It's definitely a whirlwind for these parents. Depending on your school and your colleagues, you might be one of the first ones to embrace this way of teaching. I know that last year it was pretty lonely because I was the only one in my school that was using technology, the one-to-one, the tablets. I was the only one to use Blackboard at the elementary teacher. And that's grown now. We have a third grade bite class, and we are hoping to increase it to a fifth grade and, gosh, even second grade. I mean, it just amazed me that those little guys were navigating everything just with such ease. And plus, if they come into elementary school and that's just kind of all they know, and the parents are kind of like trained from the get-go, this is huge. They wouldn't get set in that kind of traditional model, which there is nothing wrong with the traditional model, but they wouldn't be kind of set in their ways that by the time they got to me, it's just so much more frustrating for them. But I am finding that there are a ton of ways to network with the teachers, and there are more and more teachers that are jumping on board. I did some professional development trainings over the summer geared specifically to elementary teachers because it's different. When you're an elementary teacher, you have some different battles than you do in middle school and or high school. And trying to explain to an elementary teacher that Blackboard, setting up an online course can work at an elementary level. It's not just for middle school and high school. It just takes that networking, takes that collaboration amongst teachers. And yes, and it can be brought all the way up. And so that when they go to college, they have such a good foundation with these technological skills. So before I'm going to share something kind of fun and new that I just learned about this past weekend, I'm going to kind of close with a quote that I have posted in my classroom that I share at every PD session that I do and with every parent meeting and training that I do as well, because I think it's just so true and it just resonates with me. And it's that we need technology in every classroom and in every student and teacher's hand because it is the pen and paper of our time, and it is the lens through which we experience much of our world, by David Warlick. And when I came across that quote a couple years ago, I thought, yes, this is exactly it. You know, it goes back to what these kids already have access to at home, but what they have access at home is not coming over into their educational experience. It's like, here's this world that they live in, that they're inundated in at home. I mean, my kids can YouTube with the best of them. I mean, that's all I ever hear about is all these great YouTube videos. But you know, they have no idea how to watch a YouTube video that's educational in order to learn how to, for instance, correct and revise the parts of a friendly letter. So, you know, just point being is the idea of integrating and of this technology is to bridge that gap between home and school and make their school experience so much more, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Just, I don't know, more like their home experience. What they're used to being able to do at home is what they're used to their learning style at school. And that's just kind of my goal in differentiating the instruction at school. So unless you have questions, I am going to share with you guys another activity that I just learned about this past weekend at my Sarasota Reading Council and cannot wait to put into my Blackboard course into different groups that I will have signed up. And I'm going to stop sharing this PowerPoint with you for a second and flip on over to a website called Defined STEM. And to some of you guys, but it was brand new to me, and I was just so excited about it and excited to share it with you. Okay.
Do you need some help, Jessica?
Well, we were sharing it earlier when we were testing it, and now it's not sharing.
Are you choosing share application?
Yes. I'll give it just one more go. Here we go. How's that?
There we go.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is Define STEM, another resource that I just learned about from my district at a Sarasota Reading Council. And it kind of hits on everything that I was talking about with differentiated instruction as far as choice, as far as collaboration, and as far as grouping. So this is set up by standard or curriculum unit suggestions, but I'm going to focus on performance tasks since that's kind of what I'm going to be using it for when I bring it back into my classroom. So I'm going to select K5. And I'm going to take off and just do a focus on 4th grade since that's what I teach. We are in the middle of state testing, as most people are. So as soon as state testing is over, I will have a little bit more time to explore some performance tasks. And one of the units that we do in May is a big unit on ecology, specifically Florida ecology. Here we go. So this weekend, when I was perusing all the different options, I had found a performance task. The title of it is Ecologist, Invasive Species, Grade 4. And when I click on it, it's all kind of set up for you. It gives the students the understandings, the big ideas, the essential questions, how do humans influence the environment. You can go through the goal, the role, the audience, the situation, and the products. So this website kind of compiles all the research and videos that your kids would need to use in order to create this performance task, in which case I have some options here of my students making sure a magazine article, a sales pitch, or a website. So right there, I have some options on what I can assign my students. And down at the bottom here, it gives you all of the different research resources, and it has all different reading levels, and you can edit every one of these. So obviously I don't want to give my fourth graders every single one of these articles. I might want to differentiate and give my higher readers some of the higher level articles, and some of my struggling readers the lower level Lexile articles. They have access to overview videos, and I'm going to come back up here and show you how I can perform an action. I can look at it from the student view. So I haven't deleted anything from their resources. So when the kids log in, this is exactly what they would see on their screen. They can look at the process videos. Gives them the goal, the role, the audience, the situation, which is really neat. They have to talk about why you shouldn't just kind of release invasive species into the wild. And in this case, I didn't delete any of them, so it shows all 4 products. But obviously, I wouldn't want every one of my groups to have access to all 4 products. And when I come back up here, I'm going to show you real quick how I'm going to add or launch in the task center. And I can customize it. That's where I can delete some of those videos or delete some of those research articles that I don't think are appropriate for each one of my group members. And I can share and assign to students. And from here, this is where I can get the URL or the student code, which I would then just embed into the groups that I make within Blackboard. So it's as easy as just logging into their Blackboard course, going to their group that I might assign them. So I may just have one of my groups doing the invasive species, and I might have some other groups doing different performance tasks. So I could give them some choice there. I could have all of my groups doing the same performance task, but just kind of vary the difficulty level of it by the reading material that I assign to them. So I just thought this was just an amazing resource that my district has made available, and just to give you guys just some knowledge of if you hadn't heard of it yet. And what I liked about it is it just made things so much easier on the teacher by having the videos and the research papers and everything already right there. It also has the rubrics already made for each of the performance tasks that you can edit to fit your individual needs. So I just thought that was a great, great tool also that I definitely plan on using right away. We have something each Friday called Hour of STEAM. It was kind of a play on Genius Hour that's becoming really popular. And it's just a time for our students to use their skills with the science and the technology and the engineering and the math, and very much so, even though it doesn't say it, the arts in here. I mean, creating a brochure definitely has the elements of the arts in there. So that is Define STEM, and just one more resource that you can use, or an idea that you could use when creating your groups within Blackboard for differentiated instruction. So I'm going to stop sharing it now. Head back on over here. Okay. And there we go. Okay, so that's some of the ways that I have used grouping this year to kind of do some differentiated instruction, or attempt to kind of bring up my level of differentiated instruction. Typically, without the use of Blackboard in the past, my differentiated instruction was really kind of trying to come up with all these different activities at different academic levels and meet with these different guided reading groups in a time span that I just did not have. And I have found that just simply by creating these groups within Blackboard, I'm kind of doing things at once, and it's just a beautiful way of multitasking. And I do have kids access it from home as well. So as much as I don't want to load them up with homework at home, but whatever they were not able to finish in class, when it comes to their group work, it didn't just have to be done in class between the hours of 8 and 3. They're able to kind of continue their work at home if need be. And that's been kind of a nice feature as well. So, one thing I wanted to kind of go back to in here, is this individual grouping. Something I kind of forgot to mention is that in the 4th grade, we have to test them in writing, and they're learning either how to write an informative essay or an opinion-based essay based off of 3 to 4 sources that they have to read and cite from. It's, a huge struggle for our, 9 and 10-year-olds how to read 3 nonfiction texts and then write a, 1 to 2 page essay on it in a matter of months. And what's even harder to do is trying to help them individually. So besides the example that I gave you guys, one of the things that I attempted this year is, instead of spending my time reading and kind of scoring essays every so often, which is what I would have done anyways, I instead put their essay under my document camera and hit record and simply annotated on top of it, and kind of went through the corrections out loud. And then I would upload that video to their one-to-one folder. So it's something I would have had to have done anyways, except instead of going to school the next day and saying, okay, here's all of your essays, please read over the comments that I made. Okay, now let's move on. Instead, the kids came in the next day and I said, okay, go into your writing group within Blackboard and watch the video of our video conference of me editing your paper. And so then you're kind of having 23 writing conferences happening at one time with the headphones in the kids' ears. And I was still meeting, however, with some of my kids. So my kids that, were struggling the most during that time period, I would still pull them over into a small group and have that face-to-face time with those kids that kind of need it the most. And I found that to be kind of a cool experience for the kids. I didn't get to do it often because it does take time, but I found that they liked that because they weren't just reading my remarks on their essays. They were hearing what I had to say as I was grading their paper, which is the next best thing to having me face-to-face. And from there, they were able to use my feedback to either rewrite the paper that I had just annotated on, or use the feedback for their next paper. So I had actually gotten that idea from last year, from a teacher last year at Blackboard World. Do a video and add a commercial script. You can take a look at that. Yes. Oh, that's great. Do a video ad, include a commercial script for a meeting varying audience. Section of school newspaper. That's fantastic. That's a good idea too. I'm kind of going back and going through comments that I believe that I skipped. Are you able to add your own resources? Meaning my own resources, like material as in videos that I have recorded myself? Yes. Last year, I didn't really get into it in this session, but I do some flipped learning videos, and well, that's very much in a way flipped learning. Oh, yes, to the defined STEM. Yes, you are able to. That's another great aspect of it, is that part where you can edit every aspect of what the resources that you can take. Like, you can even edit the goals and essential questions so that it kind of meets more the standards of your classroom or your county. And they did show us a spot where you can add and upload your own PDFs as well. So if there is a text that you specifically want the kids to read, you can add that as well. I don't know much about Discovery Ed, but I'll be happy to check it out if it's anything like Define STEM, because it's fantastic. But anyways, just to kind of wrap it up, I hope I didn't forget anything, but these are just a few of the different ways that I have chosen to use grouping within Blackboard to differentiate instruction. I kind of went at it this year with like shooting for the moon, and then again realizing that I had to pull back a little bit for the needs of my students and parents and myself. So, I'm really happy with some of the groupings that I've made this year. But, definitely what I hope to do in the following years is do more with it now that I kind of got my feet wet in what you can do. So if you guys have any, questions on anything I might have missed or that I didn't explain well, please throw them my way now, and I will happily kind of expand on it.
This has been fantastic. Thank you so much, Jessica. Please add your questions in the chat, or just turn your mic on, raise your hand, ask questions. I've got a couple to get us started, but I encourage everyone to ask questions. First one, how much grouping do you really do throughout the school year, Jessica?
Okay. So good question. This year, honestly, with it being the first time I really explored grouping, I did probably about just a handful of throughout the whole year so far, did just about a handful of those writing conferences. I only took probably every fourth full essay that they wrote and would take the time to sit down and annotate and write on top of those. They've only done, probably now March, they've only done 2 rounds of literature circles, and I've only done one other where they were randomly grouped together in order to research the Florida tribes. So again, with it being new to me and new to the students, I found that I didn't get to do it as much as maybe I had wanted to. But it's something to, reflect on and grow from and do more of next year now that I learned what worked and kind of what didn't work.
That's great. I don't see any additional questions in the chat yet. I've got one more. Does grouping work well for all kids, like from gifted down to ESE? And what challenges are you finding in setting all of this up? So 2 more questions.
Okay. So, I found that probably all kids can figure it out. All kids get it and can participate in it. But I will say that I did struggle with my lowest students, my lowest ESE students. it was really difficult for them to learn how to do something in class and then go home and remember how to access it from home. And I have been spending a lot of time in communication with those parents and trying to help them help their child, get on Blackboard and participate in these activities. Even though it's March, there's just some kids that still struggled with grasping how to use the tools that were given to them. But like anything, they spend a lot of their time with me in small group face-to-face time anyways. I definitely don't ever suggest getting rid of face-to-face time and putting it all just online. That would kind of defeat the purpose of a blended learning model. But I would say that the biggest struggle was with my lowest students and teaching them not just the academics, those foundational academic skills, but also the technology skills layered on top of that. It was just, for some of them, it just seemed to be a little bit too much. And that's not saying all of them, not every child fits beautifully in this box that we fit them in, which is why we differentiate, which is why we have the online grouping, and which is why if it doesn't work, I just pull them and would do face-to-face. So that's kind of one of the things that I love about blended learning. And I didn't think I answered the second question. What was the second question?
The second question was, what kind of challenges have you encountered in setting all of this up?
Okay. Time. So, that's probably every teacher's challenge in teaching in general is time. That's probably why I didn't get to do as much grouping as I would have intended to do to begin with. I think my first year in my challenge was just setting up the course and setting up the content. And once I had that done, it was great. This year, I just copied my entire course over and with all of the content. And that was just a beautiful thing to do. And so I imagine that next year I'll be able to move at a quicker pace because I'll be able to say, okay, this is what worked last year with grouping and what didn't, and I'll kind of have a better idea. But time is definitely something that it could be purchased, be a millionaire. Yes, time is always major. Ask any teacher.
And my mute button was off while I was laughing. Well, great. Well, we'll still be taking more questions. I'm going to go ahead and move to the closing slides, but this has been a fantastic presentation. Keep the questions coming just as we wrap up here. Just a moment. So thank you to everyone for joining, and thank you to our presenter, Jessica. Again, you can reach out to me on Twitter or by email. And we encourage you to attend BB World this summer. We're working to make the K-12 experience the greatest ever, so please join us. Registration is open. And with that, I'll give you a couple minutes back in your day, but again, we'll stay on for another minute or two in case there are any additional questions. Thank you so much, everyone.